rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Oh, it's the Herd on ESPN Radio, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Thanks for making us part of your day, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests via the Subway, Fresh Take, Hotline, and simulcast on ESPNU, baby. Everybody from Marcus Mariota to Evander Holyfield to Mel Kiper Jr. to Chris Broussard today. Absolute pleasure today to be here. You ever get a speeding ticket? Get in the car the next day, you drive a little more slowly. Funny how that works, isn't it? I mean, you're reacting to your speeding ticket. We all do that, right? As a parent, you kind of, based on the current climate, you give your kid he does something wrong. You say, okay, you're grounded. You're grounded for the weekend. They did something else wrong. You're like, all right, you're grounded for the summer. I got grounded for the summer one time. I did. About halfway. Yeah, I did. I'm not going to get into it. I did. My late mother, Patricia. Big fire in the neighborhood. I started it. Little oil, matches. Not going to get into it. Whatevs. How about next hour? But I saw the NFL suspend Greg Hardy for 10 games. And I see all these emails, a lot of Cowboy fans. Whoa. Oh, Colin, this is just Roger Goodell making up for the Ray Rice situation. Yeah, so you do that all the time. I do that all the time. So what? Parents, bosses, companies, governments. Based on the climate, previous suspensions, we alter our suspensions. Okay, here's two things in life that are absolutely true. Don't bother emailing me and arguing. Number one, in real estate, location is everything. That house in Yonkers, put it in the Hamptons, quadruples the price. That house in Santa Monica, put it in Beverly Hills, you triple the price. Nothing wrong with Santa Monica, nothing wrong with Yonkers. Location's everything in real estate. Got a water view, double the price. Here's the second thing that's true. When it comes to suspensions, they've always overwhelmingly been fluid, negotiable, and change based on the current climate. Look at Ferguson, Missouri, that situation in South Carolina. When you look at law enforcement, shootings right now by law enforcement, based on the current climate, recent occurrences, you'll see increased charges against officers who pull out a gun and shoot. Didn't see that 10 years ago. Going to see it today. That's not fair. It's fluid. It's ongoing. It's based on the climate. Remember Plaxico Burress? First-time offender. Shot himself. Didn't shoot anybody. He shot himself in the leg. 2 years jail time. Why? Because Mayor Bloomberg, the best mayor in the history of America, Mayor Bloomberg in New York had changed the climate. No more excuses. Carrying a gun, concealed weapon, in trouble. Climate change. The day before Bloomberg creates that change, Plaxico Burress is not going to jail. Same action. Climate change. Leagues have a right, governments have a right, enterprises have a right to change their suspensions based on public outcries and reactions. And because of previous domestic suspensions with other players that the NFL whiffed on, I give them credit for going, no more excuses. We whiffed. From now on, physical altercations with women are absolutely, we're going to set you out for more than half the year. By the way, Greg Hardy, according to the league and its investigation, used physical force, essentially hit Nicole Holder at least 4 times. At least. So I have no problem whatsoever. And Cowboy fans complaining about, well, this is just because the Ray Rice situation. Yeah, probably is. How about don't hit women and you won't have to worry about it? Second thing today, the Herd brought to you by Regis. New way to work. Call 1-800-OFFICES, 1-800-OFFICES. So the San Antonio Spurs, Tim Duncan has never been down 0-2 ever in a series. Ever. In a playoff series. Ever. Last night they were down 0-1, went to overtime, beat the Clips. And I said this the other day about Blake Griffin. It's ironic that I just brought this up. Maybe not ironic, but coincidental. I said I've always had that skepticism with Blake Griffin. I know it's like Javon Curse. I know Javon Curse was absurd. I know Mario Williams, the pass rusher for Buffalo, is great. He doesn't win games. Certain guys change cultures, change games. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. Blake's more talented. I'd build my franchise around Chris. Westbrook, Durant. Westbrook's more talented. I'd build my franchise around Durant. There's only 5 guys in this league I would give the farm to. 5 that I would give the farm to. Number 1, LeBron. Number 2, Anthony Davis. Number 3, Durant. Number 4, Curry. Number 5, Chris Paul. They're not the 5 most talented guys in this league. I would not give the farm to Westbrook, James Harden, Rose, John Wall, Kevin Love, Blake Griffin. I'd give them a lot, but there's something kind of missing. Is it maturity? Is it self-awareness? Is it a slight hole in their game? I can't really define it all the time. But Blake Griffin last night, when they went late in the game, had an awful turnover, and Popovich stopped guarding him late, and he went 0 for 5 on jumpers. And I had Tom Penn on my show in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago, and I said to him that there's certain athletes in this country that are just mind-blowing. They hit you like a strong drink. They jump through the TV. But I just can't buy into Blake hitting the shot to win a title. Here's Tom Penn.
There's something missing there. Under pressure, under fire, he's a little more erratic. He seems to just sort of run through a guy or take over with urgency as opposed to letting that moment come in the right way. Great players know other great players and whether you can trust them under fire in the moment. And I'm going to say it's Blake. As great as he is as a performer and as a scorer, under pressure, under fire, that team doesn't quite trust each other.
That's always been, for Blake Griffin, me. I can't even explain it with all the guys. Durant and Westbrook, I'd always take Durant. I'd rather have a 6'10 guy, 6'11 guy that can play a 2 or 3 than a 6'3 guy that shoots a lot. Last year, with Durant and no Westbrook, they went 24-11. This year, Westbrook, no Durant, closer to 500. And I think Westbrook's more talented. So last night is a prime example of why I haven't ever bought into Blake Griffin. Go-to time, Duncan was great, Griffin wasn't. And Griffin dominated 90% of the game.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
By the way, I just got an email. Hey, stop dodging the Mets. They've won 10 in a row. It's April. You could win 10 NBA games in a row. I'm not going to talk about it in November. It's a baseball. There's 162 games. That's if you got your buddy and you love the Mets and you want to talk about the Mets, but winning, they got great pitching and nobody can hit in this sport. And if you have really good pitching and nobody can hit, you can go on rolls in this sport right now. Between DeGrom and Matt Harvey, they've got some injuries, but nobody can hit in this sport anymore. Colin, give the Mets some credit. It's April. We're not even in the last week of April yet. I mean, it's not even May, June, July, August, September. Come on, it's snowing in Wyoming. Okay, I mean, it's sorry, I can't get worked up over this. Big series this weekend. Really, Yankees, Mets. It's fun. I'll have a TV on, but I don't talk baseball standings when there's snow on the ground. That's my rule. I can't go into it. Something's happened recently that almost never happens. Let's be honest. If you're taking a new job right now, let's say you're taking a new job, you're often replacing somebody who was incompetent or you're working at a chaotic organization, right? But what's happened in the NBA recently is really random. I mean, it is very rare, excuse me. When Steve Kerr had between the Knicks and the Warriors, of course you take the Warriors job. They had a superstar in Steph Curry, and they had a budding star in Klay Thompson, and they had good contract situations and a really good, healthy roster and a GM who had a history of making really smart selections in the draft. The Knicks are a tire fire. It doesn't matter about the money. You go to Golden State. But the fact that that job was open is remarkable. You never get jobs open in the NBA from rising rosters with a superstar. They're never open. Now Oklahoma City's got an opening with 2 stars, 2 of the top 5 stars in the NBA, Durant and Westbrook, Billy Donovan at Florida or Kevin Ollie at Connecticut. You take the job. It's not even debatable. You can go back to college. Okay, Oklahoma City, sold-out arena, 2 stars, solid draft history, very good general manager. Colin, but Durant and Westbrook could both leave. Yeah, and L.A. could have a 8.5 earthquake. It's no reason not to move there. It's still the Pacific Ocean out your window and 77 degrees today. The beach. You don't have one of those where you live. Okay? You can't not take a job based on low probability fear. And if you don't want to take a job because it's a bad gig, by all means, stay at Kentucky. But if you can get LeBron, you go. If you can get Curry, you go. If you get Westbrook and Durant, you leave your cushy college gig. You can always come back. You don't stay in college. Hey, Mike Krzyzewski tomorrow is probably the only guy in the country that would turn that job down. You got to go. So this whole thing, and I hear this, well, both Durant and Westbrook, they may not stay. Yeah, and they may. But the chances, because both have had really serious injuries, like where they've been out for a majority of a year, those guys can get an extra guaranteed year salary in Oklahoma City they can't get elsewhere. Now, if neither one had ever had an injury, but both these guys got some wear on the tires, both have had major injuries, to get that guaranteed $25 million with the salary cap going up, they're going to get all-time major contracts offered by OKC because the salary cap's going way up with a new TV deal. You're not losing both of those guys. And I heard a lot of people taking shots. Well, you got to play in Oklahoma City. Come on now. There's only about 5 great places to live in the country. San Francisco, beach in L.A., Miami on the beach, Park Avenue. I mean, there's a lot of nice places. But, I mean, everybody, when they start getting, everybody gets real pious about where they live. Where I live is completely average. I mean, really. Do I get the sun every day? Do I look out at the Pacific Ocean? Do you? If you don't tell me about how bad someplace else is. So, I mean, this whole thing about let's knock Oklahoma City, it's fine. It's like most of America. It's fine if you have a good job. It's fine. Yes, it's better to live on the beach in Miami looking at the waves all day from your law office. You with no state tax. You win on that one. But not many people can do that. So, and I hear all this stuff all the time about, Kevin Ollie came out yesterday and he said he wouldn't leave. Here's Jeff Goodman, college basketball guy on that.
I love that, how UConn fans, right now think because Kevin Ollie said, I'm not pursuing any other jobs, that he is staying in UConn. Let's be honest. He worded that one precisely the way he wanted to cover himself in case Oklahoma City or some other NBA franchise comes after him.
How many times do college fans have to be burned? You're all suckers. Remember, Bill O'Brien was never going to leave Penn State. Brad Stevens was going to never leave Butler. Chris Peterson, Shaka Smart, Nick Saban, Greg Schiano at Rutgers. How about everybody ever? If you're a college coach and you get an NFL pension, NFL job, because I heard Wichita State fans are like, well, Greg Marshall didn't leave. You're right, because he didn't get the job. If he had offers Duke job or Kentucky job, Greg Marshall would have left. He was offered the Alabama basketball job, which is like the 9th best job on that campus. Okay, the best job is Nick Saban. The second best job is defensive coordinator. The third best job is offensive coordinator. The fourth best job is recruiting coordinator. Fifth best job is athletic director. I mean, so Greg Marshall would leave Wichita State tomorrow if he got Duke or Carolina or something like that. He just got offered an average college basketball job. So the other thing is, you just have to realize that the kind of people in life that could get the UConn basketball job, that could get the Florida basketball job, that could get the Oklahoma City job, the kind of people that could get the Ohio State football job, or the Miami Dolphin job, or the New England Patriot job, they're different than a majority of people. They're not traditionalists. They don't grow up in one hometown and want to stay there forever. They're driven. They're focused. They're competitive to a fault. So Kevin Ollie didn't get as good as he did in basketball, and he didn't get that UConn job because he's not unbelievably competitive. So when he comes out and says, I've got no plans to pursue other opportunities, that's perfectly worded. Because if he stays, he can say, I said I had no plans to pursue other opportunities. If he leaves, he can say, I didn't pursue them. They pursued me. Like Alabama fans, when Nick Saban stayed, were like, yeah, see, he went. Nick Saban had his agent, Jimmy Sexton, working the Texas people. And he worked him and worked him and worked him and worked him and thought and thought and thought and thought. And then in the end, Alabama gave him more, and he thought, I'm 61, I don't want to start over again. But this idea that Nick didn't call his agent, didn't sniff around Texas, you're lost. Of course he did. So, and nothing against Connecticut or Florida jobs, but good God, if you get Westbrook and Durant and don't take that job, you're out of your mind. God. I mean, between Steve Kerr and that job in my lifetime, there's never been two jobs like that, other than maybe when you came to the Bulls and got Michael Jordan. That job's just never available. Del Harris had Shaq and Kobe. They booed him for Phil. Those are generational opportunities. You don't get stuff like that in life. You always got to take over a bad team or a bad company. Massive chaos, bad roster. I mean, you're not going to get Bill Belichick's job until Brady retires. He's not retiring as long as he's got Brady. I guarantee you, if whoever coaches the Indianapolis Colts, he'll be on life support. He's going to keep that job with Andrew Luck as long as he can keep it. Mike McCarthy with Aaron Rodgers, you keep that job as long as you're not going to get another Aaron Rodgers. Come on. You're not going to get another Aaron Rodgers. All right. Blake Griffin, a hole in his game. Last night, great for most of it. Brick City late. Chris Broussard joins me next. The Herd.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
By the way, Chris Rock on HBO's Real Sports was so spot on, in my opinion, on his criticism of baseball. I put it on my Twitter account, and I can't play it on this network, or I would play it for the entire segment. I would just replay it for the entire segment. If HBO lets me, I will run it. I've never done this before. I'll run the entire thing for an 8-minute segment, and then I would react to it. I would love to get that from HBO. If our executives can somehow ask HBO's Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel to allow me to run the entire thing, I would do it. It is hard for me to just watch it, then interpret it, and talk to you about it. But it's very interesting. Chris Rock came out and basically said, as a black male, the sport is so busy looking in the past. I'm a black male. I don't want to look in the past. That's a dark time and a sad time for me. I like the future as a young black male. And it's a fascinating take by a smart, funny guy. And what I found compelling was that I am the opposite physically of Chris Rock, and I agreed with everything. And he spoke to me, and that's why he's a transcendent comedian. Because he talked about race, and it sounded like he was talking exactly to me and my friends. That's why he's Chris Rock. Chris Broussard joining us in the Herd on ESPN Radio. Okay, last night, Blake Griffin, again, huge numbers, unbelievable, but at the end of the game, Greg Popovich says, all right, let's let him shoot. There is something Chris missing about Blake. I know he's great, but there's something not right.
Well, he's a great 1A or 2 guy, second guy. And as long as you have Chris Paul, I'm kind of high on the Clippers right now. Now, my pick coming into the playoffs was the Spurs in the West. But I'm starting to think the Clippers have a shot not only to beat them, but if they get past the Spurs, I give them a shot against anybody in the West. Blake has played well. You have to admit that. This is so far, one of his better playoffs. Now, he did make the late turnover.
Yes.
But I think he unfairly fell on the bullet, if that's the way you should put it.
I have this list of guys in my head, Chris. I've done this for years. There's 5 guys in this league I would absolutely build around. And a lot of times they're not the most talented. There's a maturity or a self-awareness. LeBron 1, Anthony Davis 2, Durant 3, Curry 4, Chris Paul 5. And I think Westbrook's more talented than all of them, but Blake Griffin's more talented than most of them. Something about there's a hole somewhere.
If I had him on my team, would I max him and make him my court?
That's not my question.
I mean, so in that regard, I'd build around him. But I understand what you're saying. Cornerstone players, I agree with you on those 5.
And sometimes it's just self-awareness, maturity. A guy I think could handle a $150 million contract and do the stuff off the court.
You know what, though? Some people question Chris Paul on that.
I know they do, because he hasn't done anything.
Although he's been great lately.
He's been great. He's been more energized. I've watched him play live 4 times last 2 years. Twice he was energized, controlled the game. Twice he wasn't. He has lapses sometimes.
He does.
He lets the game come to him sometimes too much.
Well, that's been my one criticism of him. I think he's like a reluctant scorer.
Yes.
Like in the last 2 months of the season, it looked to me, he didn't tell me this or anything. It looked to me, though, like he said in his mind, so now Steph Curry and Westbrook are better than me?
That's right.
So now you want a scoring point guard?
Bill Simmons
started doing that.
Bill Simmons made a similar point. Because I said to Bill Simmons, I said, sometimes he's too passive.
Yeah.
And Bill's a big Clipper guy. Bill's like, not lately. I do think players watch other players in this league.
No doubt. Chris is as competitive as it gets. And he is, he would never admit it, but he's loved being regarded as the number 1 point guard in the league for the last 5 years. And then all of a sudden he dropped, and, and this is what he has to do. If he plays this way, that's the difference in the Clippers right now.
He's hyper-aggressive, totally engaged, controlling the series.
Yep.
Chris Broussard joining us. Oklahoma City fires Scott Brooks. It's a cruel world. Sometimes life's about timing. I think he's a good coach, not a great coach. Mark Jackson's a good coach. Steve Kerr appears to be a great coach. So when I look at the Oklahoma City offering, if Kevin Ollie and Billy Donovan don't take this, think about this. Historically, NBA job openings are awful. The last 2, Warriors and Thunder. Who's going to get that gig?
I think it's going to be Ollie or Donovan, but I would say Ollie number 1. Because if you're the Thunder, what's your number 1 priority, even above winning a championship next year? Has to be
keeping your dudes.
Exactly. And Ollie and Durant are very close.
He played 1 year in OKC. And by the way, Durant, even in that year, said he changed the culture.
Oh, yeah. He's been his mentor. They're both religious guys, so there's that connection. Ollie has respect not only from Durant throughout that locker room and around the league. He's a good coach.
He's a Chauncey Billups sort of guy. Players really, even though not a star player, Chauncey Billups and Kevin Ollie, you ask guys about them.
Oh, yeah. They got their respect.
Everybody, even the stars have their backs.
Well, look at Jason Kidd. Look at what he's done in Milwaukee based on, and let's even say Brooklyn, because he did a good job last year after the slow start. But he was great in Milwaukee. That's respect from players. They respect this guy to the utmost, and I think it could be the same with Ollie. In Oklahoma, they believe that a college coach can come in and get it done. 5 years ago, we weren't thinking that, right? But they feel like, look, the league is so young now.
Great point.
That these college coaches can get it done now, and they point to Brad Stevens as a great example.
Brad Stevens, offensively, is one of the best coaches in this league.
He's doing a really good job with that. I mean, they're going to lose the series, obviously, but he's still doing a good job.
Chris, if they weren't playing the Cavs, let's say they're playing Atlanta, Brooklyn.
They make it interesting.
Toronto, Washington.
Yeah.
I watched that Celtics team, and I'm like, they just picked LeBron in the first round. They could be not in the West, but that Celtic team in the
West,
East,
they'd be a
lottery bound. All right, so here we are. It does look like, not to go overboard with LeBron Love, but I watch Mozgov defensively, and I watch Kyrie now, and I think Kevin Love felt comfortable. They look like they're a notch above the East, right? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, because Chicago's always banged up. Thankfully it's not Derrick Rose, but now Mirotic is out. That's huge for them. Kirk Heinrich is bothered, by injuries. So, and Milwaukee, they're kind of like Boston, too. They defend. They get after it, man. I mean, they turned that game into a scrum.
The first half the other night was it was rugby.
Nobody was shooting 30%, but it was because of good defense.
Right.
It wasn't just bricks. But, yeah, I think they do look at stuff. But, look, the one issue I would say about the Cavs is they could potentially beat themselves. They're the only team in the East that can beat the Cavs.
Good seeing you, bud. By the way, here's the latest on the Chris Rock thing. We can use a little bit of it, but not much. Is that the whole thing, Vince? Well, we're radio. This is the Wild Wild West. We should be able to use the entire thing. Why wouldn't HBO want me to drive everybody to their product? That'd be crazy, right? I don't know. I think it's great, and it's really funny about sports. We were playing word association game today, and it's not. I mean, baseball is going to make a lot of money. Baseball's always made a lot of money because the season's so long and there's so many games. There's so much inventory. But Chris Rock has a really thoughtful piece on why, as an African-American, he just does not relate to the sport. And I don't know if you've thought of all these things, but I got to tell you, we sat here as a staff for like 8 minutes, and we're like, this is really, really interesting. And, one of the things he said, these stadiums, it's always like, let's make it look like the old days. And he's like, I'm a black guy. I don't want to talk about the old days. I want to look through the windshield, not the rearview mirror. I don't want to go back to 1908. That wasn't a good time for me and my family. And it's like, I never thought about it that way. That's pretty interesting.
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd podcast.
I don't think this Pacquiao-Mayweather fight's going to do anything for the sport. It's a one-off. It's going to be great for that night. But I've told you, I've been doing this now for 25 years. I know, hard to believe I'm so youthful looking. But I've been doing this a long time. I'm definitely on – I'd say I'm turning the corner. I'm like on the 8th hole. I'm going to the clubhouse for a beer and a ham sandwich, and then I'm going to do my back nine of my career. I'm going to do it for another 15 years probably. Stanzik's just beside himself because he wants to take over the show eventually. I'm here for 15 more years.
Well, if you're 25 years in and you have 15 years left, you're on like the 12th, man.
Okay, I'm on the 12th hole. Let's just say I'm finishing up that beer and that ham sandwich, but I can see the clubhouse. I'm on a par 3. I can look back and see it, but I can't see the end yet. So I can't see the end of my career, but I can see the halfway point. Okay, that's fair. I'm past that. Boxing's the best thing I've ever covered. No second place. Best thing I've ever covered. A boxing match, the night of the boxing match, it's kind of crude, but I've always said it's between a car wreck and the best sex you've ever had. It's this kind of weird, glamorous, weird, sexy, weird violence on one end. It is just you can't explain a boxing match. Like at its best in New York or where I went in Las Vegas, there's nothing in sports like it. I mean, when you go to the Rose Bowl, it feels collegiate. And when you go to the Super Bowl, it feels professional. When you go to a great boxing match, everybody's got cocktails. There's a nervous energy. You get a pit in your stomach. There's stars everywhere, and you're only 15 feet from all of them. There is nothing like it in the world. Nothing I've covered. So it takes me back. And Evander Holyfield was one of these guys that wasn't the flashiest. I don't think he was the most skilled, but he had a heck of a chin. He moved up later. He was that light heavyweight, went into heavyweight. And a lot of people, is he going to be big enough? Is he going to be? He just understood angles. He was a total pro. He went into fights and took away your best angles and accentuated his. And I never thought, I didn't think he was as talented maybe as a Lennox Lewis, as forceful as a Mike Tyson, as gifted as a Muhammad Ali. But he had a great career. He had a great career, and his son, it should be noted, is a great high school football running back who's going to go to a big program. Here's the other thing I saw this morning, and I want people, if you're watching on television on ESPNU, we're going to put this graphic up. I don't know where we got this, but it's the last playoff win. The draft is next week. It's the last playoff win for every NFL team. And it is incredible. They put up a football field, and on the left, the far left of the teams that are furthest from winning a playoff game. Bengals, Lions, Browns, Bills, Dolphins, Raiders, Tampa, Tennessee, Redskins. On the far right, or in the other end zone, is the teams that have recently won playoff games. Patriots, Packers, Seahawks, Colts, Ravens, Broncos, Saints, New York Giants, Steelers. Jets are in there. and what it goes to show you as a fan. The longest droughts, Bengals, Lions, Browns, Bills, Dolphins, Raiders, Tampa, Tennessee, Redskins, all have one thing in common. It's not quarterback, not offensive line, not coaches. They all have organizational incompetence. It doesn't matter if you're a football player, a salesman, or a broadcaster. No matter how talented you are, you can't overcome organizational incompetence. Never forget, with LeBron and, yes, Michael Jordan, those guys played a long time without titles before they got the right head coach and the right teammate or teammates. Jimmy Fallon was talented for 15, 20 years. Then NBC decided to make him a star. Bill O'Reilly swam around broadcasting. He was a correspondent. He did Inside Current Affair. Nobody cared. Then he got Roger Ailes. Then he got Fox. Then he became an American star. So when you look at this, those teams have good receivers. Some have good lines, Pro Bowlers. They all have chaos. And don't kid yourself, the players know it. Last year, Rich Cimini, a New York football writer, had a poll. He polled about 100 players. And who do you want to play for and who do you not want to play for? The Raiders were the least desirable team. Players were quoted as saying, I'd go there if they doubled my salary. So when I looked at this graph, and you're looking at it on ESPNU, it is amazing. We pay attention to the draft and the labor and the coaches and the look upstairs. Look in the press box to the old rich guy. It doesn't matter how good your roster is. And I'll tell you right now, I don't think Jacksonville's roster's all that bad. I don't think Cleveland's roster's all that bad. How many coaches and quarterbacks have the Browns gone over in the last decade? It's embarrassing. New England's had one coach and one quarterback for more than a decade. By the way, the New York Giants, even though they've had losing seasons, one coach, one quarterback for a decade. That's why when everybody wants to run Tony Romo out of town and Jason Garrett out of town, I'm like, slow down. You will not get anything better than Tony Romo. There is nothing in this draft and nothing in next draft that's as good as Tony Romo. Look around. You don't like what he does in the playoffs. He is a great quarterback talent. He's not good. He is great. And last year he finally had an offensive line. What do you know? Finally had a little help in the backfield. What do you know? Pretty good football team. Good stuff. Stanzik, you know I'm a little goofy on something. There's two things in the world I like. Okay, and I wouldn't even say I like. There's two things in the world I'm kind of a weirdo. One of those things, it's been well documented on this radio show that I'm a weirdo, and that would be
recruiting.
The other thing I'm a total door cat, Stanzik, would be what?
Aviation. You're oddly fascinated with all things air travel, airplane crashes, everything. Oddly fascinated.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by aviation. I watch any special I can on aviation.
D.B. Cooper, I mean, it all ties in. Serial killers is probably a distant third.
Yeah, but anything on the building of planes, the Wright brothers, I would roll with them today if they were around. I like Wilbur more than Orville, but I love the Wright brothers. So did you see what happened? 3 passengers on a SkyWest Airlines flight Wednesday reported a loss of consciousness. They made an unscheduled landing in Buffalo when the flight plunged 30,000 feet in a couple of minutes on a clear day. All I'm saying is planes don't do that. They don't do that. That is a really, really interesting story to me. And when these things happen in both the Malaysia flight and the flight in Germany, I said the day of it, planes don't do what those planes do. I've been in massive turbulence. That I want to see, and I'm not claiming anything. All I'm saying is when a flight plunges 30,000 feet in a clear day, I want to hear that recorder. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. All right, is Kiper here? I just saw Kiper's hair pop through the door. Is he here? I love Mel Kiper. Get him in here. I'm not waiting around for Mel Kiper. Get him in here.
By the way, when's your flight to Vegas leaving?
Don't even talk about that. I'm hitchhiking there. Don't even get in my head, Stanzik.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
Throw to the plate, safe at the plate!
right through the World Series.
For the third time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
All right, he's my guy, Mel Kiper Jr. And, you know, it's interesting. I like Bill Simmons, but when he befriends Ryan Russillo, it hurts our relationship. So when I befriend Todd McShay, deep down, do we still get along?
Barely.
Okay.
You're hanging on by a thread.
Just a thread.
Yeah.
Mike Mayock, I let come on the show. That really severs.
Mike's a friend.
Is he a friend of yours?
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys all get along.
We worked together for years.
Okay.
I mean, everybody has an opinion. They work hard. Everybody does. Everybody has different opinions. If you're in this business long enough, you're going to be right some. You're going to be wrong some.
It's like picking stocks.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my sleeper. Sleeper to me is third rounder later and becomes a big-time player in this league.
Exactly.
Ty Montgomery, Stanford.
Could be. He's got the length.
Wide receiver.
Versatility kick returner. He's got the ability. He's shown the ability to be a dynamic weapon. He fell back a little this year, very inconsistent.
David Shaw's a very conservative play caller.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Hogan took a step back at times. Could I say Montgomery was fine? He didn't get the opportunities.
I'd like to see more consistency. But I think third round, as you were talking before we went on, you get a Ty Montgomery in the third round, you got something. And guess what? The receiver position, the depth drops off where there's a lot of mixed opinion on guys in the fourth. So the first 3 rounds are where you're going to have to really do your job. Unlike last year where I think it was a little deeper. You know, Martavis Bryant dropped to the 4th. Remember Michael Campanera dropped to the 7th of the Ravens. You may have that this year. Kid I think is interesting is Desmond Lewis at Central Arkansas. Trey McBride at William & Mary are a couple little off-the-radar guys that can play. But I'm on you with Ty Montgomery. I think Ty Montgomery in the third round, when he was once considered to be maybe a 1 or a 2, gives you some value.
A couple years ago, I had T.Y. Hilton as my sleeper. So this year I have Ty Montgomery. Now, there's another player I think is really interesting. Mm-hmm. He had an injury. I can't qualify him as a sleeper because I think he's going to go, and you will know this earlier, is Philip Dorsett, the receiver from Miami, that has Odell Beckham at times burst, can be just absurdly fast. Mm-hmm. But the word is, from guys like you, he can't be a sleeper anymore.
No, he's a first-rounder. I believe. I'm saying all along, whenever his name came up early in the process, because I knew he would run into 4.3s, which he did. Then he ran 4.2s at his pro day, which at speed, can you apply it to the field? He can. Great kid. Talk to the people down there. They rave about him in terms of his personality and his approach. Team guy all the way. He's a we and us guy. That's what I love about Dorsett. And I think the versatility as well in the return game, which he's shown. Same thing with Duke Johnson at Miami. Duke Johnson's got return ability, kick return ability. If he can stay healthy, Duke Johnson can have a very good career. But what you have to do with Duke Johnson, and we were talking about Amir Abdullah, is spot him, make him situational Darren Sproles types, and then you have something.
I tend to be, and just because of the way I was raised, a little more contrarian than the average public. Mm-hmm. We have devalued running backs so much now, I kind of want to go in on running backs. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of falling back into this. You may watch Seattle and New England run the ball. When I saw Todd Gurley at Georgia, he dominated games. Mm-hmm. So we know he's good. Everybody knows he's good. I want to talk about Melvin Gordon at Wisconsin and Amir Abdullah at Nebraska, who also dominated games. My eyes tell me that Gordon's better and can take more of a beating. So I would go Gurley, Gordon, and then Amir Abdullah. I think Gordon's I don't think that kid from Nebraska can be a 24.
Oh, no. Abdullah can't. Abdullah's going to have to be Sproles. Gordon, to me, is a tremendous pure runner. And the underrated part of Gordon is inside. He will run between the tackles. Now, he will catch the ball better than he has. He's going to keep improving in that area. He'll get his nose dirty as a blocker, which you have to do in this league. And the fumbling's got to end. He cannot have fumbles like he did late in the year. Can't have it. The 12 career fumbles, 7 lost. Abdul's had a major fumbling issue.
Major.
With small hands, where you don't worry about, but you do when you're fumbling. And, he can be a major factor if you can utilize him properly and the fumbling ends, okay? I think the running back devalued the position, as you said. I don't think it's as a player or a position, but the fact that you can always get them at bargain points, because very few need them. Most teams are pretty set at running back. This year we have some that aren't. That, Arizona's got to get a running back. Dallas has got to get a running back. You think about San Diego, they could use one. They have 3, but they could use an elite running back. So there's going to be 2 running backs in the first. The new running back position is wide receiver. Wide receiver is the new running back. Because what they're doing is they're catching bubble screens.
Well, this is very interesting. I told you.
Well, it's bubble screen league.
It is a bubble screen league. So here, and by the way, I'm going to keep Mel for 2 segments. Next segment, I want you to call or email. I'm going to go to individual teams because I have a question about the Giants, but I'm going to ask you on the other end. This is very interesting. You made a point to me about corners in this league and what they have to do today, and I had never thought about it.
John Gruden has been big on this for years now, and he's kind of preached it to me. Now, can he tackle? If he can't tackle, we can't play with 10 guys because it's a bubble screen league. He went to a board. We were down there. I was down in Tampa this week. He went up to the board. He said, "No, when am I going to put up here for a pass?" I said, "Bubble screen." He said, "Bubble screen league." You're getting the ball out to him quick. You don't want your quarterback to get hit. They're in the shotgun. Boom. And then they got to make the damage after the catch. The corner's got to cover. They can't run away and hide. And a lot of them do. So if you're playing with 10 guys and you got to say an outside linebacker that won't tackle as well, or a defensive end that won't play the run, now you're down to playing with 9 guys. Then you're in trouble. But your corners that won't tackle or don't want to tackle are a major liability.
So this is and I hate to do this because he's a young guy, but I've got a first-round bust. It's the Michigan State corner.
Trey Waynes.
I think he's spindly. And I don't like to call kids busts, but there's going to be busts in the first round.
Oh, yeah.
I see this Michigan State corner, and he's a $180. He's a $180 out of the shower, dripping wet with a towel. And I'm like, you can't do that anymore. I want Darrelle Revis. I want arms. I want Richard Sherman long. I want guys in my back end that have range that can hit. So you said to me, and I said to you, that Michigan State kid scares me. Give me a first-round guy that you're worried about. Go ahead. There's something there. There's a hole or something.
Randy Gregory. And I love Randy Gregory 2 years ago. Todd and I were here after the draft last year, and I said, Randy Gregory's the 3rd best player in the draft next year, guaranteed. I assumed he would play like he did 2 years ago when he was dominant. He's going to get better, right? Didn't happen. He had injuries early, injuries late, and was a shell of the player he was the previous year. 2 of the last 3 years, going back to the JUCO level, he's been hurt. He tests positive, okay? Off the field concern, taking care of your body, the weight fluctuation. Can't keep the weight on. That, to me, are you going to practice hard? Are you going to be focused 12 months a year? Randy Gregory can be a great player, but does he want to be? Is he going to do things necessary to maximize it? That's debatable.
You get hurt in college, you'll get hurt in the pros.
Right. And he's in the program now. So you keep testing, but eventually, if you keep doing this and you don't end it, it leads to a suspension down the road.
That's good stuff. Mel Kiper. Okay, so players rise and fall. Who's the riser in the last month?
The guy that Todd and I have been battling about for months. And I think Todd's on board with him now, but not as much as I am. That's Broussard Perriman at Central Florida. When you watch him, and I watched him all year, 6'2", about 212, he ran a 4.2 40. That's rare. You say, okay, can he catch the ball? For some games, he makes the miraculous catch. I can show you highlight film catches. I can also show you drops that say, we could have caught that ball. It was
wide receiver, Central Florida.
The drops, some are concentration, where you'll see the head go, he's not looking the ball in. So concentration drops, some are no excuse drops. Like, what the heck happened, Broussard? It's like the shortstop boots the easy ground ball that goes in the hole or behind second base. He's making a miraculous play. That's concentration.
So Braylon Edwards had that issue.
Yeah, a lot of receivers have. Des Bryant's had some drops as well on easy balls. You can't have that. Michael Irvin's been around him his whole life because Brett Perriman, this is his son, Broussard. Broussard's got to be more focused on the easy throws. My attitude is, Colin, if you can make and snag with his hands the catches that he makes, You can make the easy catch. It's concentration and focus. If that improves, Rashad Perriman can be special. If it can't, he's going to frustrate the heck out of an offensive coordinator because those drops become punts, okay? And you can't have that. So I'm going to roll the dice that Rashad's going to become more consistent, and he's going to go somewhere in the top 15.
Okay, I've got about 5 teams. I got a question about the New York Giants in a place they're going. I've got several interesting ones next. Mel Kiper Jr. You know, I always say Mel Kiper Jr. I don't know Mel Kiper Sr.
My father passed away in 1988, and I always kept it. It's just because it became part of the whole deal of that's who it is.
Did he like your draft future, your draft profession?
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be here because he was the one ran the business when I was out just watching football, and all the business stuff that allowed the books to be successful, the draft reports, was him doing all the work.
So he started the draft stuff.
Well, we started together. He did all the work. He knew business. I was 18 years old, Colin. I had no clue. I was a clueless 18-year-old.
I would have loved to see your hair at 18.
It was long, pal.
I bet it was glorious.
No, Colin. I don't know about that, Colin.
Third.
Colin Cowherd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Oklahoma City has a job opening, and much like the Warriors with Steve Kerr, any of you college coaches out there who get offered that job and don't take it, you're lost your marbles. Nothing against Kevin Ollie at Connecticut or Billy Donovan at Florida, but if you want to be at the highest level of your profession, you're never going to get another Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook on a team. Now I'll say this, and Stanzik, you and I got into this earlier today. People, Skip Bayless, I may disagree with him on 90% of what he says. I'll tell you something I absolutely agree with Skip. I don't think Westbrook and Durant, I don't think they're a good match. Because I think Westbrook, I think they'd be better served having a Kyle Lowry with a Durant, and then if you could get like a Kyle Lowry and another player, a big, so Durant didn't have to bang on the boards, I think Westbrook takes shots out of Durant's hand, but I'm not sure if you trade for Westbrook, you could ever get equal pieces. You can't. I mean, the closest anybody ever came from trading a star and getting equal value was the Milwaukee Bucks years ago when they moved Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They got a boatload of good players, and they were good for a long, long time. Didn't win titles, but they were competitive for a lot of years because they got great players. So you're never going to get a Westbrook, but I don't think Westbrook and Durant fit. Now, I don't think LeBron and D-Wade fit. The difference is LeBron's the best player in the world by a large margin, and he just made it work. But don't forget, they lost 2 of those finals. So as great as LeBron is, if you don't match, if you don't really fit, it's tougher. Shaq, Kobe, great. Pippen, Jordan, great. Mikhail Bird, yeah. Charles Barkley, Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson, terrific. Kobe Gasol, outstanding. Parker Duncan, great. The truth is, Westbrook takes shots from Durant. He's a volume shooting point. Not that I want Mike Conley, but if you gave me somebody, Mike Conley, he's not bad. But I'm saying if you gave me Mike Conley, who could give me 9 a game to 11, 12 maybe, and then Durant's average goes up, could you give me Mark Gasol and Mike Conley? Would you not do that?
That's too much. No,
okay,
Conley's a lot better than you think. Conley's like all-star level. He just plays in the West when there's so many point guards.
But if I said this, you are Sam Presti.
Oh, if you would do it in a heartbeat if you're Sam Presti.
Yes,
yeah.
If you gave me Mike Conley.
Yeah, but the Grizzlies aren't
No,
sniffing
but I'm saying that. But I'm saying, see, this is my point. I would make that deal too.
But it's an unrealistic deal because you're getting too much value back. No one would ever offer you that for Westbrook. That's too
Westbrook.
much. Yeah, but they'd rather have Conley and Gasol.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? That Sam Presti, you and I both love the NBA and watch it, that Sam Presti would probably, if he could get Conley and Gasol for Westbrook, it would be a better deal.
Yeah, you're getting 2 All-Stars for 1.
Yes.
Yeah, that's more than fair market value for Westbrook.
Conley, Durant, and Gasol fit perfectly together. Gasol lets Durant freewheel and not worry about the glass.
No, that'd be great.
It'd be an NBA championship roster.
You know what we're kind of glossing over, and I don't mean to just throw this on you, but are you cool with the Thunder just getting rid of Scott Brooks?
Yes,
we kind of just jumped right to, who should take the job? Are you cool with him firing him?
I liked Mark Jackson, but when he left, Kerr took over. You're like, okay. I think Brooks was fine. I think that narrative, that voice, that dialogue for those years, I think it just hit a ceiling. And I think Pat Riley always says that. Sometimes you just need a new voice. About every 8 years, you just got to change what you do for a living. So Chris Broussard was on earlier today. He told us who the favorites are for the OKC job.
I think it's going to be Ollie or Donovan, but I would say Ollie number one. Because if you're the Thunder, what's your number one priority, even above winning a championship next year? Has to be
keeping your dudes.
Exactly. And Ollie and Durant are very close.
The other thing Broussard said that I thought was very interesting and very true, the jump for coaches from college to the NBA is no longer unthinkable.
In Oklahoma, they believe that a college coach can come in and get it done. 5 years ago, we weren't thinking that, right? But they feel like, look, the league is so young now that these college coaches can get it done now, and they point to Brad Stevens.
Brad Stevens, absolute perfect fit in Boston. So as the NBA game gets younger, college coaches working with younger players, most believe now works in the NBA. But if you're a college coach and you can get Westbrook and Durant, even if one of them leaves, you'll still have a superstar. There's only like 7 in the league. If you can get a superstar, and I think Durant's going to bounce back fine from this injury. I do. Rick, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Colin? Love the show, man.
Thanks, man.
I was calling because I think it's sad what happened to Scott Brooks, but I also think that Mark Jackson should get the job because he's a leader of men, and I think that's what the Oklahoma City Thunder need.
Well, here's the problem, though.
And Russell together.
Here's the problem. Mark Jackson had Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. He left, they got better. So you know Sam Presti's going to get beat up bad in the press because, remember, he already lost James Harden and people beat him up, and now he's going to hire Mark Jackson, and people are going to go, Mark Jackson left the Warriors. They're 10 times better. They had 2 stars. We have 2 stars. You're going to get destroyed. That is way, way, way too risky of a move. Leader of men, blah, blah, blah. He left. Those men got better. How's that for leading them? Steve Kerr led them to more wins. I'll take that leading men thing. Okay? Yeah, that's the reality of it. Herd email. To each his own. I love Chris Rock and his baseball rant, but if he's going to talk sports, HBO's the place. The only network that would hire Bryant Gumbel. Hugh. I like smart commentary. HBO's got tons of it. HBO's probably got more smart commentary per show than any network in America. It's not a liberal thing. It's a smart thing. I don't think of HBO as a liberal network. That's what Tea Party people do. I think of HBO as a smart network. I've never once thought, HBO? It's MSNBC. No, it's not. No, it's not. I don't think that. MSNBC, way left. Fox, right. I don't think HBO left. I think HBO's smart. Well, they got Bill Maher. So, yeah, Bill Maher's an hour show once a week. 30 weeks a year. There's 52 in a year. HBO hires really, really smart people to do really, really smart projects.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast. Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. That one is gone. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.